Hello, everybody. Very, very warm welcome to all of you. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is the very first webinar of a series for Reaktr.ai, and we are so excited about hosting this for you. We have a really action-packed session for you today. We will start with a quick intro on Reaktr and our flagship security product offering called SecAi. We also have an esteemed panel that will talk about conversions of GenAI and security. We'll also talk about the challenges that global enterprises face today while adopting AI. So I want to get right into it. Without further ado, I request Mr. Sriram Ramanathan, Global CTO, HGM Fund and XPP Europe, as well as Shripati Balaji, Senior Vice President, Reaktr.ai, to flag off this webinar. Over to you, Sri.
Hi, thanks. Welcome, everyone. I'm really excited that you're joining us today. And I think we've got a very good session planned for you. The thing that strikes me as a technologist is that we know that the one thing that's constant in our lives is change. We see the rate of change everywhere around us. And as technologists, we're used to that. It's one of the few constants that we know about, that we're aware about, and that we deal with. We're used to it. But even in that context, I think the last 2 years has been amazing in terms of change. Ever since OpenAI unleashed, their first 3.5 model with ChatGPT in November 2022, so much has happened in the space of AI, and it's been truly revolutionary. And I do feel that we're living in amazing times. And if you look at the recent announcement that OpenAI made just 2 days ago with what they're calling their GPT-4o model, and the fact that it's completely multimodal, and you can interact with it with text, video, as well as voice, and have it respond in all of those modalities very fluidly. And then you see the announcements that Google made with their improvements to Gemini and how they've incorporated Gemini right into the workflows that are supported by Workspace. Just the amount of use cases that have been unleashed by this technology has been amazing, and it's something that we're all leveraging extensively within our companies, across the globe. So I think, in terms of digital transformation over the next few years, it's going to be about scaling GenAI within the enterprise, leveraging large language models for a variety of use cases, whether these use cases are around increasing revenue, improving enterprise productivity, or worker productivity, and making sure that you're compliant at every level, right? So whether it's increasing revenue or saving cost or making sure you're compliant, I think GenAI is going to make a huge difference, if it's adopted right. Now, it's obviously a very big opportunity, and every enterprise is looking to see how they can leverage GenAI. But there's also room for a lot of abuse of GenAI. You've got so many different threat vectors that are making it easy for this amazing technology to be used in the wrong way. Whether it's things like prompt injection that cause your chatbots to misbehave and hallucinate, whether it's drift in your data that's causing your model to give results that are biased in some way, whether it's your development processes and how they're taking into account how these models are being trained and deployed. So we at Reaktr have been spending a ton of time on this problem for well over a year now. And we've got some exciting new announcements in terms of, the technology that we're deploying, and we're excited to talk about that. But today's panel is about more than that. It's about having some very important people who we're privileged to have with us. And I think you'll see a lot of very useful information covered, along with our own SecAi product announcement for Reaktr.ai. I don't want to steal the thunder that these folks have, so I'm just going to turn it over to Sripati Balaji, our chief architect for this product suite and Reaktr. Over to you, Sripati.
Thanks, Sriram. And hello, everybody. Just to give you all a perspective of what we are seeing with GenAI implementations, there are over 21 distinct areas that we have identified when it comes to GenAI security itself. We have curated this into few broad categories from a perspective of thinking and how do we incorporate into the product itself. So input data training is one big area what we looked at, followed by the LLMs itself, which is the brain of the entire ecosystem of a deployment. Business outcome layers, which are key from a perspective of consumption integration and business process simplification, and the underlying infrastructure itself. After months of pondering over these challenges and working with this amazing team, some of them are on the call today, we've put together a services platform to help enterprises build responsible and secure AI solutions. There's a bunch of compliances that have come through, which are very country specific and region specific. They have also been incorporated as part of the services platform. SecAi, as what we're calling this, will be launched in a phased manner. And as Sri was mentioning earlier, so we're starting it with India, and there's a global launch slated in the following weeks. With this platform, we hope to support organizations to foray into their AI world with security from us backing them. So they can simply accelerate the journeys, what they're planning as of today. We're really excited to hear from this esteemed panel today about the point of view on GenAI and beyond. Thank you all for joining us. Thanks, and back to you, AJ.
Thank you, Sripati. Thank you so much, Sriram and Sripati, both for introducing Reaktr and SecAi. Now, everybody's been talking so much about this notable panel. Let's introduce them right away. We'll start with Mr. Sunil Gopinath, who's the CEO of Rakuten India. Welcome, Sunil. We also have Sudhir Nair, again, co-founder and CEO, MD of Coden City. Welcome, Sudhir. We also have Vijay Muthu, CISO, Rakuten India. Hi, welcome, Vijay. And last but not the least, we have our very own Vineet Chaku, President, Reaktr.ai. A big thank you to all of you, and thank you so much for giving us your time today. Thank you. I want to quickly get into all the questions. There are so many questions. When we opened up the registrations for this webinar, we got so many questions, and I'm going to try to get all of them answered by the end of this webinar. But my first, most simple, but also very critical question I want to ask. So all of these words that we've been thrown at us, AI, Gen AI, chatbot, LLM, machine learning, so many words. And you know what I really, really want to know is what is the level of adoption of AI within organizations, really? Is it as fast growing as we are seeing and hearing today? I think maybe Sunil, as CEO of Rakuten India, you have such a overarching view of all of this and the industry. Maybe you could take that question for us.
Got it. So thank you. First of all, thanks for inviting me, and congratulations on your product launch. I think the timing is right, and I think security, and particularly in the Gen AI space, is something on top of every boardroom, every technology task force that's out there in any organization. Now, to answer your question with respect to adoption of generative AI, definitely, I can give you from my perspective, and also I'm on the board of a few companies, that the adoption is indeed increasing significantly. And you look at a company like Rakuten, we're a global company with 75 plus businesses. And I can safely tell you more than, without necessarily putting a percentage out there, a significant percentage of our businesses are already utilizing Gen AI, either for increasing the top line or for improving user experience, or for productivity gains and improving bottom line, right? So more than 2/3, I would say, give or take. And can't foresee a scenario where it's not going to be used in pretty much 100% of our businesses, right? And particularly if you're anyway going to invest in technology, you want to invest for these reasons: top line, bottom line, and user experience. So why would you not use it, right? So yeah, I mean, I think in this particular case, the hype and the reality coincides quite well.
Right. Obviously, thank you so much, Sunil, for answer. So it seems like AI is being adopted at a really fast pace, in all businesses. So I want to ask Sudhir this question. Sudhir, do you think that AI adoption is limited to just a few top companies who have big bank accounts, who have resources, or do you think it is a technology that can be used by every business, no matter the size, no matter the industry? What do you think?
So, thanks, AJ, for the question. And once again, on behalf of Coding City and the entire team, wanted to congratulate this team of Vineet, Sriram, and Sripati on the launch of SecAi. So, all the very best to all you folks. Specific to this, I should call out and say that AI definitely has garnered significant attention. But there's a common misconception that its benefits are limited to a select few companies or industries, particularly those in the tech sector, so to speak. In my mind and in reality, AI has a potential to revolutionize every business and industry, regardless of any size or domain. Top of mind, what comes in is healthcare. Today, if you were to take a look at it, AI does assist in diagnostics. I think the future of personalized medicine is very, very positive and exceptional. Assisted surgery is on its way, and even in predicting disease outbreaks. Let's take an example of COVID, right? God forbid that we don't come across another COVID in our lifetime or any future lifetimes, right? Okay. But if that does happen, and at the acceleration of what we are seeing from an AI standpoint, I'm sure that we will be able to predict the outbreak much earlier, and even the phases of the vaccine development to deployment can be accelerated significantly. So I'm clearly seeing healthcare to hugely benefit in this space, both AI as well as the GenAI part of it. We have come across an important use case of fraud detection. I believe across most industries, Sunil spoke about telecom as an industry. I would say that even financial services, as well as many spaces out over there, fraud detection is becoming extremely critical. And that's a space that you would see similar use cases: risk management, financial advice being provided by robo advisors. All of that is going to be the in thing. Next, what comes to my mind is the predictive maintenance. I think that being powered by AI from a manufacturing standpoint will reduce significant downtime and maintenance cost. As we all know, the impact that AI can make on customer and guest experiences from a retail and hospital. But more importantly, I would call out one sector that has definitely caught my attention, and that could be of huge impact from an Indian GDP standpoint, is the agriculture sector. If you were to get it right from a precision farming, and that could drive significant crop yields, I would say that it would be something very, very substantial from a organization, from a country standpoint. With the drones and sensors which are powered by AI that being implemented, I think you can monitor the soil health, you can monitor the crop growth, and even adjust the pest control. I think all of this, in summary, in my mind, every business stands to gain from integrating AI into their operations, provided they approach it with a clear strategy and ensures that the ethical considerations are taken into play. So that's how I would put it.
Right, right. No, that's fabulous news. You talked about healthcare and you talked about agriculture. These are industries where if AI enters, it's going to be absolutely game changing. I agree. I was reading a statistical report on exploding topics that says by 2025, the AI space is forecast to reach $126 billion in annual revenue, with 83% of companies claiming that using AI is their top priority list as a business strategy. So with such wide levels of adoption, I wanted to know from this panel, what are the biggest challenges that you guys foresee?
Okay, I'll go first. So, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me, and congratulations to the entire Reaktr.ai team for the launch. Coming to the questions, some of the key challenges that we are observing in the AI space adoption is related to the legal risk that is predominantly to do with your IP infringement, because during the adoption, there are multiple use cases which can go wrong when it comes to the risk factor, especially the integrity of the data. That's a significant risk, that I see when business adopt this kind of technology, because you have no idea what is the source of truth. Unless you have the transparency, I see that, without validation, if the business is using this kind of data, there is high chance uh, of relying on inaccurate data, which may go wrong in making critical decisions. The other significant risk that we have observed is around data leakage. I think everybody is aware of the famous leak that has happened in Samsung, I think 10 months ago or a year ago, where one of the employee put the entire code on GenAI and for code optimization, and that was detected by some other company while doing some research. That's one of the risks that I foresee. And then, the whole the backbone of AI, which is predominantly based on LLM models, that needs to be protected as well. So if you are using third-party LLM, you also need to be aware of the supply chain, the source of truth, and also ensure that the third party has the right controls to protect these models. Some of the attacks, which Shripati highlighted, like prompt injections, poisoning of training data. I think these are the risks that you need to be cognizant about while you adopt this kind of technology in businesses.
Right. Thank you, Vijay, for that. So what I'm hearing is one of the biggest and most common challenges is security for AI. So maybe, Vijay, you could highlight for us the security challenges that AI ecosystems as a whole face.
Okay, so the whole ecosystem perspective, I would say, the major trend that we have been seeing in the last 3 years or so is privacy. And as a lot of data points out, every country has different compliance metrics for using the privacy. So unless your model is robust enough to adapt to the need of the businesses, I think you're looking at significant risk when it comes to privacy compliance. The second thing that I see is around the source of truth. I keep repeating this because we are relying on an information which is supplied by a third party. So do you have any maker checker process in place? Even while you're using this technology, I think one needs to be absolutely diligent about authenticating or verifying the information before making use of this information or the output for any key decision deliverables or for any technology advancement. So these are the two which I can recall, or I would say I will stress upon looking at the various trends that's going on in the market.
Sorry, does anybody want to add something? All right.
Yeah, I mean, so if you,
Yes.
sorry, was someone speaking?
No, please, Sunil, go ahead. Yes.
See, you look at it, I mean, just LLMs in general, right? I mean, there are three elements: security, performance, and cost. As we scale and as there are proliferations of LLMs and models, clearly security, Vijay has addressed, all those elements, from toxicity to fairness, ethics, prompt injection, All of these things matter, right? Cyber attacks. But then also performance matters, right? As in, how good is your LLM, right? Just plugging in an LLM doesn't mean your customer experience, your consumer experience, your business impact is actually fine, right? I mean, somebody needs to be looking into it. For example, hallucination, right? I mean, an LLM might hallucinate or throw offense, which means give wrong information to the user or be offensive. How are you actually tracking that all of that is going wrong and then going back and correcting it and improving the performance so that customer experience and by extension business is not affected? So there's one element that's a risk. And also cost. I mean, you look at it these days, right? Because of the proliferation of OpenAI based LLM models, as well as the ones from Google and Meta and OpenAI, any developer can wire up an LLM within 10 seconds to their application, right? And then it's producing millions of tokens, and employees are just sending in PDF saying, summarize this, summarize that, give me a chart. I want to look good in front of my CTO, whatever. And you're running up a bill, and wait till, by the way, we are all amazed with everything that Gemini has come up with and GPT-4o has come up with. Wait till you, as a large corporation, get your first month's bill. And then let's see if your enthusiasm on a scale of 1 to 10 is still a 9.9. So, I mean, I would say these are the two additional risks, along with security, that I would throw into the mix.
Right. Thank you, Sunil. Thank you, Vijay. So what I'm hearing is it's fabulous, but it's also dangerous. So, when I was researching for this webinar, I read about so many lawsuits, so many cases, penalties that are being paid. What I really want to ask this panel is AI really taking over? And are we going to be dethroned very soon?
No, I think, Avantika, you just touched a very raw nerve, and everybody feels like, rise of the machines and the stuff like that. All the Hollywood movies have kind of predicts it. We are at very early stages, but it is challenging. So if you look at some of the stuff that it has done, given that it's still in an early adoption phase, nascent yet, you look at what Air Canada have. They kind of just put across saying, if the chatbot gave a ticket to a customer and he was going, the gentleman was going back home for his bereavement. And they said, hey, we can't honor this ticket because it was discounted by the chatbot. Similarly, another case was where the chatbot actually took the person to a suicide line. And there are multiple cases of where Gemini, the snafu, that big one happened, where they kind of came up with pictures, which were, they put a bias engine on it, and suddenly you had, black Nazi soldiers coming up with pictures. There are incidents like that have happened, but since it's in very nascent stage, that is why. But going forward, if you look at it as like Sunil talked about, as you have shown the stats, the adoption is going to be at a scale. And when the adoption is happening at a scale, especially in healthcare, think about it. If in case you end up doing something like prompt detection attacks, or you do data poisoning stuff, the systems that are downward dependent on it could result into a fatality. But if you look commercially for all the industries, challenge is going to be there's model theft. Hey, if in case you worked for a year, you created a trained up model, you invested effort, then in that case, I don't need to do ransomware. I don't need to get into that kind of stuff. I can easily get into model theft. By the time you actually known about it, it'll be too late. Would you ever come to know about it? Look at the traditional security apparatus you have. That's where the challenge is. And that's what we have been talking about, the SecAi aspect was, hey, he will give you insights into that, help you see that, build the guardrails, and ensure that. I'm sure Vijay and Sunil and Sudhir must have heard about some of the interesting cases. Any anecdotals which you feel that was interesting where AI was involved and they suddenly see something, outcome was completely different what they expected?
Yep. So, Vineet, you're absolutely right. And if you were to take a look at it, it's all the way from what is recent to way back until 2016. There are a lot of such cases which has actually come up. Not to name specific companies, but mortgage discrimination in US was a big thing when it was when the loans were supposed to be were denied to the minority applicants, right? Okay. There were serious biases which were found from a hiring standpoint. Again, folks coming in from a minority perspective. From a commercial standpoint, I would call out. I don't know whether you've looked at the DALI bit, right? Okay, it actually threw up the AI generated artworks were absolutely closely mimicking some of the artworks which was the original intellectual property. So there are a lot of those cases which actually had come up over a period of time, right? Okay, Tesla's some of those accidents which were AI led or controlled cars, right? Okay, I think it's some distance away for some of us to be comfortable and confident in even when the flights land. Today, it is automatic or automated only when in flight, right? Flying, but not the landing bit of it. I'm not sure when we would reach a point in terms of we'll be confident to hand it over to AI to land safely. So it's still some distance, but yeah, checks and balances on multiple aspects is going to be critical for the success of this.
Right. Thank you, Sudhir, Vineet, for those insights. So, what I want to know is, what do you all feel about what could be the immediate and far-reaching impacts of these attacks and vulnerabilities that all of you are, telling us about?
I think you have covered it well, but yeah, these are the common factors that we foresee, which is associated with any kind of security incidents, whether it's GenAI or in general. The number one factor has been disruption of business or services. Just imagine you're not able to provide services for customers that signed up for. That's one of the biggest impact, which again cascades to financial losses, reputational loss, losing out customers to your competitors, and more importantly, in cybersecurity world, it's more about the recovery. It's very painful and it's very cumbersome. Usually it takes about on an average 150 days to 200 days to even stand back and resume your operations. So these are the major challenges. And don't forget, once you lose a customer, it's your competitor who's going to win those customers. And the customer is the we call them as God. And from the data perspective, the more customers you have, the more data you have, and you have the ability or power to monetize those data. And you lose that database, it's a significant loss. So these are some of the major challenges that I see from any specific AI-based attacks, which is very detrimental to the business.
Right, right. I want to bring Sudhir back into this conversation. Sudhir, in the context of attacks on uncommon targets like SaaS or cloud providers, how can AI-powered systems really help identify these vulnerabilities that are unique to cloud infrastructures?
So I would say that cloud infrastructure, if you were to look at it at this point in time, has become hugely complex. The number of services which gets launched on a regular basis and the pace at which it is actually expanding globally, be it in terms of the environment sizes, okay, is going to become more and more complex as time passes by. Besides the SaaS and the cloud providers, I would even call out that large enterprises today, or the mid to large enterprises today, who are actually leveraging not just hybrid but multi-cloud, and they also have significant usage of SaaS. Okay, also kind of fall into that similar kind of a category, right? In such environments, the AI-powered anomaly detection system does play a crucial role across multiple spectrums. Just from my past life, having run delivery for a significant period of time, I can tell you that misconfiguration has been the largest number of cases for P1 incidents, which is the severity 1 incidents. And I'm sure that everybody on this panel and on the call would agree to this aspect. And AI systems being available, and if it were to continuously monitor configurations across applications, infrastructure, network, and compare it against the best practices and known secure past configuration, I think it could do a lot good in terms of ensuring that these things can be remediated very quickly, or even prompted when such a thing is actually happening proactively, right? Okay. There are many examples, and there are enough battle scars with all of us. Okay, the cloud storage is a classic case where somebody accidentally left it open from a public standpoint. And if such instances, if AI systems flag it off, I think similar simple ones also could make a huge impact. The second that comes into my mind is uh, identifying unauthorized access. Um, in, in every environment, you would see there is an element in terms of uh, unauthorized access uh, being crucial or being the real reason in terms of information outflow. So if you can track suspicious activity, typically for an employee who's supposed to be there between 8 and 8, if you see suspicious activity at 3 a.m. in the morning, there's every reason to believe that this needs to be flagged. And if it can be detected and locked, okay, that could be great. Same is the case in terms of real-time monitoring. Sudden spike of data transfer, okay, these are the ones. If patterns are visible, okay, you could actually act on it fairly quickly. So in summary, the AI-powered anomaly detection does help into monitor misconfiguration, spotting unusual access patterns, providing real-time alerts, and even automating responses to potential threats. These are the ones that could actually ensure that the cloud infrastructure is safer and more secure.
Okay, thank you, Sudhir, for answering that question so well. So, what role does AI play in identifying and mitigating the potential for data disruption, like really widespread data disruption in cloud-based ransomware attacks?
Okay. See, it again go back to the to the fundamentals which Sudhir just mentioned. I think first and foremost important thing is how quickly you are able to identify any anomaly patterns. And with AI, especially on the clouds specific environment, I think there are a lot of options that I see that's been offered by various vendors who are providing runtime misconfiguration checks. It identifies any vulnerable ports, vulnerable misconfiguration. You also get an option of runtime compliance checks. Some of the offerings that corporate gives to various clients also mandate them to be compliant all the time, like PCI, HIPAA, so on and so forth. And then, automating the remediation part. This is something which most of the vendors are offering today to fix some of the low-hanging vulnerabilities that has been reported or identified by these AI-powered algos. And then, most importantly, what we are seeing is, AI being able to identify the known unknowns and unknown knowns, where you see a pattern of data exfiltration through an API, or you're seeing a pattern which indicates a zero-day attack. All these are achievable through AI, and there are a lot of vendors who are embedded these capabilities in their tools. You talk about zero trust, you talk about CASP, you talk about any solutions. These are now become absolutely necessary to have, then good to have. And then one of the other things which has been adopted, and I think which should be part of your strategy, should be if there is a specific pattern or anomalies which will have cascading impact on your cloud infrastructure. I think the AI powered solution should be capable enough to discard those services or probably isolate those infected instances or resources to a different network altogether to protect your business. I think that's the scale we are looking at, and I think these are the essential features that AI should be able to offer if you're looking at SMB or corporate level uh, of security, and that's the ask from the industry as such. If someone is giving me these features, I would be more than happy to look at this data and form strategy around it.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. Are there any specific AI-driven strategies that organizations can employ, let's say, to proactively identify these software vulnerabilities and reduce the risks that come from these ransomware groups?
I think Vijay, maybe you may be best placed to.
Okay, so one of the strategy that we usually deploy, or what we are discussing and constantly improving on, is to keep identifying the loopholes, keep doing continuous monitoring on all the components, whether it's on-prem or it's cloud, and ensure that we have this algorithms, we have this automated system which keeps giving you the red flags in different classifications so that we can emphasize on remediating certain high vulnerable or critical services on priority. That is number one. The other thing is, now it's becoming AI versus AI. So, AI is being used by the defenders, and it's also been used by the cyber criminals. So it's all about how powerful your AI is to have the capability to understand the pattern and give you those actionable intelligence as quickly as possible, so that you can deploy those countermeasures on a fly or within nanoseconds. Again, the AI plays critical roles in suggesting these controls, suggesting these countermeasures. I think these are the strategies that we are looking to deploy, and I think patches are very, very essential when it comes to you know ransomware related attacks. Now, one interesting data that was published by IBM some time ago was the advent of GenAI, has made it impossible, or I would say literally difficult, to recognize certain patterns which we used to see in the phishing emails through which the ransomware payload used to penetrate the network. Because there's no spelling error, there's no spelling mistakes, there's no grammatical errors. The text, the image, the payload looks absolutely genuine to any normal users. So it's very, very difficult, with the advent of AI and Gen AI, to spot these differences and then, make those decisions. And again, from defensive perspective, you need to keep fine tuning it based on what you are seeing in the logs, in the events, in the different payloads that you are seeing through your network, and then devise your your strategy, or fine tune your algos, signatures, patterns, anomalies, so that you don't miss out on any of this malicious traffic that's trying to penetrate your network.
Yeah, and I would just add to that point, not necessarily from a ransomware mitigation perspective, but more importantly, I did hear Vijay mention the fact that ransomware, okay, to be created now doesn't take even 60 days. It takes probably 6 or 8 hours, right, Vijay? So I think these strategies is going to be extremely critical, and you need to be doing it kind of on the fly to actually ensure that you are there and preventing these kind of attacks.
Vijay and Sudhir, completely agree with you. And I think the complexity of GenAI implementation that is happening, look at the space. We started with few LLMs. We're talking about close to about 200 to 37 LLMs plus. And every week we see this one LLM or 3 LLMs coming out. Challenge is going to be like what Vijay said earlier, compliance. Every country has suddenly woken up, and there is everywhere in the world they've started putting the frameworks together. UK has put a framework, India has started, US has. Every country has woken up to saying is that, hey, they see an element of threat to this, because this has an ability to strike far and wide. If you look at a traditional ransomware attack, there was an ability saying is, hey, what did they take from us? Is it something worth that we need to fight for? Bro, look, now that changes. You don't know what they have taken till they have taken it from you, till they have used it, consumed it, sold it. And that's where one of the things that we started on mitigation strategy is that the reason for the SecAi was more to look at saying, hey, like for example, we've curated 10,000 prompt injection stuff. So making sure that your guardrails and your GenAI adoption strategy is well built with proper security parameters, making sure that you are fortressed from that perspective, so that you don't end up in a situation where any bad actor, like Vijay clearly stated, given that with AI their capability is they can spin it so fast, you don't even know how fast they've come in, taken it across, and moved out. And challenge being is, do you know with traditional, standard firewall, standard stuff, do you know where they came from, what they did? Not much. So I think it is going to be essential for all the organizations seriously to start looking at Gen AI with a different perspective when you are talking about security paradigm. That has to have like SecAi kind of a platform supporting it. And it has to make sure that the players like us come in, secure that safely, do the right adoption, and then build on it without getting into a situation where they do an adoption and then they make themselves liable. And I can understand Vijay's position, like CISOs there would be like, hey, what the heck, I'm not going to do it. And so you will be saying from a CEO perspective, saying as well, that is my growth. Uh, Avantika, I'm just going to take one question, which I'm quite interested, because we have both the CEO and CISO. There's always this, delicate balance between growth and security. In traditional terms, they didn't have that much of convergence, but with Gen AI, if you look at it, there's a growth element that is seen distinctly changing the way business is being delivered, but at the same time, there's a huge risk scene. So Sunil and Vijay, means you both are in that driving seat where you see one side, Sunil, you must be, I'm sure you're kind of pushing growth, and second side, Vijay is like, hey, my policies don't permit it. Can we basically curtail this growth?
Yeah, I mean, see, my perspective on this is that I'd like to draw a parallel to how technology adoption and of disruptive technologies in general, right? And go back a little bit into history and see how that adoption has been in the tech industry. And if you take a really 100,000-foot view, it isn't necessarily any different than what we have seen in the past when any technology like this has come up, right? It could be blockchain, it could be public cloud, right? I mean, even now there are companies who are still in private clouds, but their employees, particularly in companies with diverse businesses, right? Their employees are coming in and saying, hey, I've got to go to the public cloud, because not just for basic stuff like compute and storage, that's like bread and cheese, but most for the other important stuff, right? I mean, you look at even before GenAI came in, you go look at a lot of the AI providers that were out there in the public domain. It's Azure, it's Google. They all had deep learning based AI technologies, whether it's image recognition, face recognition, fraud detection. It's out. I mean, all those were available. And so you look at it, there's this constant tension between employees and leadership teams wanting to adopt the latest and greatest capabilities available so they can focus on higher order value, right? I mean, I'm not going to sit here and start doing image recognition. I want to use image recognition so I can build a payments business, right? If that's the case, I'll have to put 5 data scientists for every sort of sciencey problem that I'm going to encounter along my way. So I have no choice but to go in, and every company has its own balance in terms of what it's going to build internally versus what it's going to adopt externally. And every time you go external like this, right, there is always this constant tension between how do you do it securely, ethically, in a privacy right way, versus, I'm just going to wire up stuff, don't bother me, right? So it's at its fundamental, it's all about innovation, creation, growth, versus doing it the right way. And this tension is going to exist all the way. And I'm sure all of us noticed, we're privy to sort of what went on at OpenAI, right? Where you have a CEO who wanted to grow, and then you've got a board which wanted to do it in a very conservative, secure, ethical, governance-focused way. And I don't think these two are mutually exclusive. It's just which one catches up first. There's no right or wrong answer here. I think it goes back to the culture, DNA of the company, and what have you signed up to do that will drive some of these decisions.
Absolutely. I think Sunil has a very valid point. And, as a CISO, I always believe that, our function should be more of enabling innovation, creativeness, and, cost optimization, and then, business growth. Now, having said that, there is always a difference of approach when it comes about security. So from my perspective, I know that, CISO role is no more a traditional role where, you just go and, list down your checklist. Hey, if you're going to do this, ensure that these things are happening. And if you're not doing this, then, I'm going to flag this as a big risk. And then, if anything happens, there will be always a disagreement on the ownership. Now the era is about, how much risk you can take, or how much risk assessment you can do in terms of what potentially can go wrong, and to what level you can sustain that appetite. So it all boils down to the business objective, what's the business expansion plan, and then to support this particular business objectives or business expansion, how you're going to ensure that the security measures are adequately placed, and then how do you enforce the governance so that it's we are not exposing too much into the to the external risk, and balancing it out in certain way. I think that the balance is where there is always a disconnect, but we always ensure that there will be an element of risk even if you put the governance, and then we should be constantly monitoring those governance perspective to ensure that there is no significant impact in case something goes wrong within the system. So it's all about risk taking CISO persona, that that's a way forward, because you can't be a blocker where there's so much of innovations, there's so much of technology advancement happening. You can't go and say that, hey, I'm not going to allow this because it's against the compliance. I think you have to balance it out practically, looking at the historical data, looking at the technology, looking at the various third-party, fourth-party factors, and put a strategy around it for governance.
I think that was a great insight that gives it. I mean, probably this is the time where Gen AI CISOs have to come into play. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that, Sunil?
Yeah. So honestly, in my mind, if you ask me, the BAU CISO has got a larger mandate, okay, across the board, okay, in terms of taking care of anything and everything within the organization. At the pace with which GenAI is actually moving, an exclusive role, okay, as a GenAI CISO will do a lot good for the organization. Structurally, how it's organized, okay, it's a different matter, but someone who actually understands, relates to the speed at which, as Sunil mentioned, in terms of performance, cost, quality, and accelerating the revenue. I think these are the elements, plus ensuring that the technology is adopted at a pace, okay, and it is secure enough for the organization to use it on an ongoing basis. I think it is going to be extremely critical to have an exclusive role in that place, and that makes it easier, even in terms of the tool evaluation, the things which needs to go around it, right, for the GenAI models to be more secure. I think an exclusive role would actually definitely have a role in the organization around it.
Fantastic, Sudhir. Thank you very much. I'll give it back to Avantika. Sorry, Avantika, I hijacked it because this was very
No, no,
interesting topic
yes,
that I could cover.
yes. Yes, I'm also at the end of my list of questions. But like I said at the beginning of the webinar, I've received so many questions from everyone who's registered. So let us take a couple if we still have a little time. My first question comes from Bhavya. She asks, will GenAI fade away in a few years? So I think as CEOs, you guys have such an overarching view, right? So maybe Sunil can take this answer. Sudhir later can also maybe chip in.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably like asking, will the calculator fade away, right? When the calculator came up, one would ask the same question, and then it just became a computer and became a supercomputer and so on, right? And you look at AI, I mean, what we are seeing today is the work of exemplary hard work, innovation, and contributions of thousands of people over the last 6 decades. Right? It didn't happen magically. And I think as a community and society, I think this to me is as fundamental. What is happening right now with open LLMs and so on is as fundamental as how TCP/IP became open source and was available to everybody across the planet. I mean, today Meta is making Llama 3 open source. I mean, imagine the level of mathematics, and statistical learning and machine learning and data science that has gone into it, right? Thousands of engineers who have worked for decades to bring all that together. This is not a fact. I mean, this is about as real as it gets, right? And I'm telling you right now that I can easily see a 30% impact to our top line from GenAI, right? So I definitely don't think it's it's a near-term thing or going away. In fact, if it's anything else, I think you look at the way things are going with Sam Altman looking for $1 trillion investment to build AGI, it is going to happen, and nobody's even blinking an eye this time, right? So I think AGI is going to happen. It's going to elevate the world into a completely different zone altogether, and there's nothing stopping this. That's my perspective.
Yeah, so AJ, I completely echo what Sunil said. There is no stopping to this, except for the fact that we need to ensure guardrails. But this is here to stay for at least few decades, from my vantage point.
Thank you. Thank you, Sunil, Sudhir. We'll go to the second audience question. Saloni asks, what are some of the effective strategies for integrating AI into cybersecurity frameworks for maximum protection? I think with our on-panel CISO, Mr. Vijay Muthu, you could answer this for us.
Okay, the strategy for integrating this in cybersecurity, uh, it all depends upon what kind of infrastructure you have. If it is a hybrid or if it is completely cloud driven, I think your common strategy should be around what's your crown jewels and what do you see from the traditional tools, and what kind of incidents or events that has happened in the last 1 year, 2 year, and then you get a perspective that what kind of threats has been persistent towards an infrastructure, and then devise these AI-driven technologies in the right level at the right layer with a defense in depth approach, so that even if one layer is not able to detect or prevent any specific penetration, at least there is a backup that has been provided at a subsequent layer. That's one thing. The second challenge, I would say, or should be part of the strategy, is upskilling your professionals. Very, very important, because if you look at the traditional cybersecurity personals over the last decade or so, they've been hands-on with the tools. They know how do they address a specific threat, how do they classify it, how do they investigate it, how do they do threat hunting. But with the evolution of AI, there's a lot of capabilities that these tools offer. But unless until you know how to use them, you may not be able to reap the complete benefits. You may just use it for 20, 30%, and the 70% of the effective modules may not be even get used. So upskilling yourself in the usage of AI is absolutely important for cybersecurity professionals. And third, I would say, as you're, upskilling yourself, devising this strategy, I think one thing that you need to be always cognizant about is, the guys who are going to go after your infrastructure, go after your data, they are far, far advanced, and you need to think out of the box. So unless you are, adopting to this new trends, seeing new patterns, and then learning out of it, I think you'll be always behind the game. So these are the three main things that I can just think of when devising the strategy for cybersecurity.
Right.
One thing I think what Vijay explained there was SecAi in a very succulent manner. Vijay, I don't know, how do you have access to our white papers, or you've been talking to Sripati a lot? I could see some of the stuff, like one that you talked about, saying is, which was primarily about saying is, hey, you need to build a security strategy, you need to have ability and tools that can do it, which is like, and then the whole multi-layer aspect of it, saying this is not a single layer-based attack that you're going to be looking forward. Yep. Interestingly, in SecAi and Sripati and the team have been working, we said, what do we do? How do we make sure that multi-layer capability exists? And second is, what is the battery of attacks that we can put together so that we ensure that we look at from all angles, and we keep building, as you rightly said, with AI access to everyone. It has leveled the field. Good guys, the bad guys, we both are there in the same level field. Now the intention is, how fast can we scale up versus how fast can they scale up?
Absolutely.
And collectively, I think that's where probably one of these things is that we collectively need to, this also gives an ability for us to collectively kind of put together our defenses so that we can make sure that the bad guys stay out. Second part of where you said the right kind of security capabilities, I agree with you. The talent is, especially AI talent,
Yep.
the dirt is hardly ever been like, everybody has been talking about it. I've seen major stuff saying, hey, we're building this Gen AI capability. But if you look at what Sunil was talking about, is all of this data science capabilities, the folks who have that kind of depth and skill, we do not have that level of sizable population available. So
Absolutely.
yeah, so the idea is teams, basically companies like us have to step in and help. That's why we're talking about SecAi as a platform as a service, where you have ability of set of tools which have, like we run 6,000 set of tests. We do about 120 plus LLMs. We keep on increasing it, and we'll keep on doing it, and make sure that the kind of capability, the folks who look at the mitigation aspect of it understand what is that the customer is trying to do. How do we make sure that where the data exists, and the complexity, I think, keeps on increasing. We're just looking at securing. We were talking about saying is how vulnerable the data is now, where data resides. It's difficult to pinpoint where data is. It's like, I was just talking to Sudhir. We said it's like a Heinsberg principle. You can either find the data, then you're not able to find whether that has what the implications are going to be. But if you find the implication, you are not able to find where the data is associated.
Data is, exactly.
It's going to be ever changing, challenging stuff. But really interesting insight. Thank you, Vijay.
Yeah. And another thing that, I think we can all correlate this AI and, the Gen AI capabilities to a popular attack called Log4j, happened somewhere in 2022, where, suddenly, there was a mass scale attack using this particular package. And then, this virtually impacted almost 80% industry, worldwide. And it's not like Log4j did not exist as a vulnerability. It was a vulnerable package, but the vulnerability that was tagged against it was medium. I'm sure someone did some computing, some changes in the code, created an exploit, tested it, and then just spread it across, through various means. And this literally blown out. So I have huge, data that shows that there was a huge involvement of AI technology for creating such a sophisticated exploit, because uh, post this zero-day attack, I think there was a release by some of the security researchers, and it kept on changing. 6.0 was safe, then after a week they realized no, it's not safe, because now the attack vector changed altogether within a span of 3-4 days. So that creates a lot of doubts. What was the capability that was used to create this sophisticated exploit? So unless you are at the same scale, at the same pace, it's very difficult to to manage these kind of threats.
Right. I think we're also at the end of our 1 hour. So I want to thank all of you for answering all of the questions that our audience had, that we had, and all of it. But before I let you go, I want to congratulate the entire team of Reaktr.ai. Here they are. We have Shripati, we have Anupam, we have Rajput Ravi Kumar, we have Rishikesh, and all of these, DJ, Dhananjay. Thank you so much. Congratulations to all of you. What a fabulous job all of you have done. Thank you. Also to the audience, if you have any questions to us, to the Reaktr team, or even the panel, feel free to write to us at info@reaktr.ai, and we'll be very happy to answer all of your questions. Lastly, thank you, Sriram, Shripati, and the entire panel for all your time. This has been such a great experience, and we've got to learn so much. Thank you so much, all of you. And until next webinar, thank you, guys.